Welcome to Building Better Workflows with Hubly, and we're going to be covering how you can leverage the ACP best practices workflow templates that we've built with Hubly. Before we dive into it, going to go over the agenda of what we're going to cover today. We're going to quickly do speaker introductions so you know who everyone is on the call. We're then going to talk about the Hubly and ACP resource partnership and the exciting things we've been working on. 3, we're going to transition into a live demonstration with wealth advisors from John and Dennis. They're going to actually be showing everyone how they've used ACP best practices workflows to really structure their firm and organize their operations. And lastly, I'll be covering how you can get started with Hubly and use the ACP templates that we've built. With that being said, quick introductions for everyone. So I'll just quickly start and I'll pass it over to Ron, then we'll go to Dennis and John. So my name is Louis. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Hubly. Primarily at Hubly, what I do is I work with advisors and all of our partners to make sure that the advisor community knows what we're doing and spread the message about workflows for financial advisors. And I'll pass it over to you, Ron.
Awesome. Thanks, Louis. My name is Ron. I'm one of the other co-founders here at Hubly, and my job is to work with every single advisor that Louis brings into Hubly to make sure that you and your entire team are successful. So I've had the pleasure of working with over 100 firms, mostly over the last 12 months, actually, since we've launched our product last summer, and really just learning the best practices, sharing those with our new users, and continuing to check in as you continue using Hubly to see how your business is growing and how we can help. I'll pass it over to you, Dennis.
Hey there, Dennis McNamara, co-founder of Wealth Advisors. I probably know of and many of you on the call, either from the conferences or just virtually through the forums and whatnot. Excited to be taking part. We've really seen the value for our firm in using Hubly, and hope to share some of what we learned. So if anybody's interested, they can cherry pick and not recreate the wheel.
Take over from there. John Munley and me and Dennis started our firm in 2019, so we're basically 2 years old. I've been a member of ACP for 6 years, and I am looking forward to hopefully seeing most of you live in person in Atlanta come October. So looking forward to that.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. To dive into it, for those that aren't aware, looks like a lot of the people on the call have either heard about Hubly or been on our previous calls. But to give you an idea, we're growing one of the fastest advisor communities in the industry. As Ron mentioned, we've onboarded over 100 advisory firms onto Hubly, and we have over 250 happy users using our product. And we're managing over 100,000 end client relationships, and we've helped actually create over 30,000 client workflows. Hubly is a workflow tool that's purpose-built for financial advisors and their service teams. What we do is we're a workflow tool that integrates with your CRM. So we're not replacing Redtail or WealthBox. We actually sit on top of it, and we use the data from your CRM to really make your workflows and processes more efficient. To give everyone an idea, some of the core use cases for Hubly on what advisors in our communities have said are their core workflow challenges. Primarily, a lot of our advisors struggle with streamlining their client onboarding process. So how to really deliver a consistent client experience in those initial stages of your client relationship. 2 is improving how you actually manage your check-in process for new clients. So ensuring you do the scheduling, preparation, and follow-up procedures properly to ensure that nothing falls through the cracks. And the last thing we cover is managing client projects and reviews. As you all are aware, there are multiple things that you need to manage for a client, especially if you're offering a true comprehensive experience like the ACP membership. And so how do you keep track of all those projects, from tax prep to estate planning to opening up new investment accounts, to really make sure that you holistically cover your client's finances? Awesome. To give everyone a quick overview of the Hubly and ACP resource partnership that we've been working on over the last 6 months, is we've essentially had 3 goals working with the ACP membership, and we're excited to share those with everyone here today. Over the course of the last 6 months, we've onboarded 15 advisory firms from the ACP community onto our product. And the goal really was to discover best practices for workflow management that teams like John and Dennis have really been doing and practicing. While we were doing that, we were working closely with Joanne and Kevin and the ACP leadership to really learn the best practices that ACP already recommends. And so our team spent a lot of time going through the advisor desk reference. And what we've essentially done is we've married the best practices from what we've seen the advisors are doing at ACP and also what ACP already recommends. And through that process, we've actually developed ACP workflow templates to make it really quick and easy for any ACP member to get started with Hubly. We know the building of workflows and designing component is really difficult. And so the goal of this process was to make it as easy as possible for anyone to get started with workflows. With that being said, now that everyone has an overview of today, I'm going to be passing it over to Ron, who's going to first facilitate a conversation with John and Dennis about their workflow experience, and then he's going to be moving into a live demonstration.
Awesome. Thanks, Louis. That was great. And we are really excited for our ACP partnership. I think having worked with 15 firms and having really helped each of them, like Dennis and John, develop a system to manage each of those moving parts, we've really seen a lot of commonality between how ACP members already think about client service. And I'm super excited to have the opportunity for Dennis and John to share their experience as well. So as we get started here, Dennis, John, I'll kind of start you off with the first question from me here, which is, if you think back to a time before Hubly, what initially drove you down this path of looking for a solution like Hubly? If you want to take that first, John, and then, or sorry, Dennis, and then you can pass it over to John.
Sure. Yeah, I'll jump in. So as John mentioned, we started, a new firm in 2019, and coming from different firms ourselves, we had a different approach to how we were thinking about client relationships, CRMs, workflows, all that kind of stuff. We had completely different experiences. And John and I started, shopping around different CRMs, seeing if that was going to be the solution. And we were through, I can't even remember how we stumbled upon Hubly. I think somebody referred us to Hubly and did a demo and said, wow, we don't have to jump ship. We can just kind of layer this right on top. And since we've come on to Hubly, I probably go into Redtail once a week, but all of our information is getting backed up into there. I've got peace of mind, that there's all of our tasks, comments, to-dos, anything for a client is still ending up in Redtail should we need it. But I have a place where I can live out of more reliably day in and day
out. And I think for me, it was more, when we were first starting out and you're a small firm, it's kind of easy when you have a few clients to, use Excel spreadsheets or take notes and put it in a folder. But we realized as we were going to get bigger that, we were going to have to some way use workflows. So we looked into Redtail's workflows, and just for us to get educated on how to use them, it didn't look very intuitive. So we were going to put a lot of time into learning how to use them. And I don't think either myself or Dennis really wanted to do that.
I did the summer series training all on workflows, and I still finished that thing like pissed off, not knowing what to do next.
And I wasn't even going down that path of trying to figure those out. So then we thought, all right, do we hire somebody outside to come in and build workflows for us inside of Redtail? And we thought about that, but again, the same thing is you'd still have to learn how to use it, because if you wanted to tweak it, it's just, again, it wasn't very intuitive on how to do it. So we were kind of stuck, and another colleague of mine had been using Hubly, and I actually mentioned Trello. I said, yeah, I'm using this Trello thing just to do my personal stuff, and I wish there was something like that for workflows. And he said, you got to call these guys at Hubly. Which I did. They gave us a demo, and it just made a lot of sense on how to manage the day-to-day operations. So me and Dennis decided to, go down that road and explore it a little bit deeper.
I would add just one other point there that I neglected to mention, and that is John had experience with workflows prior to even seeing Hubly. I really had not come from a firm where we used workflows much. I was most interested in having, like, and I would keep telling Louis and John, like, I want a client dashboard, like one place where if that client calls me out of the blue, I can just pull them up and have 90% of what I need right in front of me, not all siloed out in these different tabs like it was in Redtail. I don't think it's as bad on WealthBox, but that was the pain point for me, having that one central place where I can see just about everything going on for a single client.
No, for sure. And I know I was actually going to mention that. I know that when we first started working with you guys, John had actually carried over a lot of that process mindset with him. So John, do you want to kind of just talk about a little bit, what did you use before Hubly to keep track of your clients? What were some of those processes that you set up internally for yourself?
I mean, it was mostly, it was Excel spreadsheets, and it was kind of like, all right, we have a prospect. What do we have to send them out? And then we just put check boxes in Excel. And then, all right, now we have a new client onboarding. What information do we need from them? Email templates. We have one folder in our OneDrive that just has email templates for clients, and you kind of look down and see what they're all about. And what was nice about Hubly is you can kind of take all that stuff and include it in the workflows, so you don't have to use an Excel spreadsheet. You don't have to use an email template outside of Hubly. So it just made, as Dennis said, keeping everything in one place really easy.
No, for sure. And I remember when we first started working together, you mentioned that process worked, but it required a lot of data rekeying, a lot of data reentry. And one of your frustrations after having spent so much time training through Redtail was that you needed the flexibility of what your spreadsheets provided, but Redtail's workflows didn't provide you that for some of the kind of more nebulous workflows like new prospect development or client meeting follow-ups that you had a great process for already, John, but potentially we're looking for a way to reduce the labor of managing it and really just improve that experience where you can collaborate more closely on that with Dennis as well.
Right. And then my brain is very list oriented. So like I'll see a list or checklist and I know I have to do this. And again, Hubly is very good towards being able to manage the book the way I want to in that way.
And if you both think back to that first meeting with us, what did you think that success would look and feel like once you got through that onboarding, once you've achieved that?
Well, I'll just take what it first. So so I saw the demo of what it's going to look like. And then our first onboarding meeting with you is just this white screen with nothing there. And I'm like, there's no way this is going to get filled in with workflows. I was like, what did we do and what did we get ourselves into? But it was kind of putting our trust in you, Ron, to kind of lead us to the path that we ended up. Yeah, Dennis, I'll let you also comment on that.
Yeah, I had a similar feeling when we first started out because it did feel like kind of like what John said, this blank slate. But I mean, it was, I think one of the hardest things for me personally when we first got started with Hubly was in those initial trainings, understanding how certain things connect. Like we're learning a little bit, bite-sized pieces. It was not, drinking through the fire hose right up front, but there were a couple themes that had to be reiterated to us a couple times. Things like streams and tags, which I think we might get into it maybe a little bit later here. Different things to make your workflows actually flow, right? Because you can build anything, but then there's kind of like, the way that you utilize a system is through streams and tags, which is kind of like, the circulatory system of how the system works. And I wasn't connecting dots early on. It took actually doing it, building workflows to start to piece things together.
No, I remember that really clearly. We were talking frequently about how streams are not workflows and how workflows are not streams. But I think the underlying aspect that really helped it click in was once we finished categorizing your book of business, and you saw how that begins to flow naturally, we really saw just your hub come to life, really, right? So I think having heard there. Go ahead, John.
And I think another great part about it is, you know, you go into this onboarding and it's not like, all right, you don't have to do anything. It's just going to magically disappear. Like me and Dennis put a lot of time in thinking about our workflows, because in actuality, there's a lot of things that, you know, we didn't even think about, like what's our process behind this? We didn't really have a process. So we kind of had to go through things step by step by step, and it really got us to commit to these workflows and thinking about our process in different situations, whether it was during tax season, during an annual meeting, during an end of the year meeting, and you know, even cash flow. Like how do you move money between accounts? Like, is there a process for that you don't really write down, but at times you are going to forget steps. So this way it keeps you all in line on these steps. So it was a lot of homework, but I think that, you know, whatever it took 6 to 8 weeks to build this out really got me and Dennis doing the work to getting all our processes done.
So that sounds like a lot of work. And I'd say that we have a couple of, I'm just looking at the participants list here, and we have a couple that are about to start onboarding with us. So if you could give a word of advice to those advisors and team members who are about to kind of embark on that training process, embark on that onboarding process, what would you tell them?
I think with advisor tech in general, like the universe of technology available to us financial planners, any of it comes down to like what you make of it, right? For us, Hubly was an investment, not just obviously financially, but the time that we put into the onboarding. Like John kind of said, and I'll echo it here, we took the onboarding really serious, and to do anything less than take it very serious and to think that it's not going, you have to really, I think, embrace it, and that is going to be a central part of how your day in and day out works. I could see it being something that, you know, a user is not going to get the best experience if they're not connecting all those dots. If they've got these loose ends, you know, workflows work because everything is tied together. And there's still some things, even as we've gone through 1 full year in using this, where we've had to tighten our workflows up because we're like, wait a second, we set it up this way when we did our onboarding with Louis and Ron, but in practice, like when we set up a tax season workflow. When we're in tax season, we had to live it and do it, and whoa, we need to make some changes. So I think that it's an evolution too. It's kind of a living, breathing thing, but to get that started up front to get it to a point where it's workable, it takes the time. That would be my one suggestion is give it the time, make that investment.
Awesome, thanks, Dennis. Anything to add, John?
No, and I guess I think each person is going to be a different situation. Like me and Dennis again were just within a year of starting our firm. We're starting from scratch. I'm sure a lot of people out there had workflows that they've been using, so they don't have to take that much time in building this out. So I think everybody's going to have a different experience with it. But like Dennis said, I think for us, this is an essential part of what we do every day. I mean, this is it's what we mainly use to keep track of where we are with clients and what we have to push forward and everything. That to set it up, we wanted to make sure that we did it right, that this would be the only thing that we had to use.
No, that's super powerful. And I think that it's very true that the firms like yourselves that really are so successful, which is surprisingly quite a lot of firms that choose to start with Hubly, are looking for that system that can be the single system that they live out of, and to kind of get that peace of mind of not having to check your emails all the time between each other, not having to check task lists and spreadsheets, and just constantly feeling like data is flowing all over the place. So I think that like one of the most important things that stands out to me now that you're fully implemented is that I've seen you proactively make the time on a regular basis, as you just mentioned, Dennis, to revisit your workflows and to make those improvements. So I'd love to kind of ask you, as one of the last questions here before I move on to the demo, what drives you to do that? What drives you to kind of pause, go back, improve, and iterate?
Well, a couple things is one, efficiency. We just want to be as efficient as we can and not waste time on things. So, if we see we've missed a step, we'll add it to the workflows. If we see this is taking too many steps, we can cut it down. But another thing that's kind of gotten us thinking and has made us more conscious of how we're wording our workflows are, somewhere down the road, we may get a virtual assistant, and we want an assistant to be able to pop into any workflow and be able to understand things. So while it may make sense to me and Dennis, if a third party was looking at it, it may not make sense to them. So, we've started to go back, and we've just started, but kind of to change verbiage that if somebody else was looking at it, would they understand exactly what we're looking for?
Perfect. And Dennis, anything to add to that? I know that you've also been, you never were big on workflows before Hubly, but now you're actually going in there and you're living in Hubly, and I see you building out and making changes, as you mentioned, to workflows like tax season, et cetera.
Yeah, I think the motivation to improve is just that we had a lot of room to improve, right? Like we do surge meetings, like 3 set meetings through a year. So each of them kind of were unique in their own way. We have, the first time that maybe a client, like one of my workflows is I work with medical professionals, right? Buying a medical practice. And all of a sudden I'm building out that workflow in real time based on some of the things that I'm going through with a client. A client's birthday, different things that come up. So there were things that were just coming up where we were like, oh, wait a second. Yeah, I don't want to have to think about these steps again. Why don't I create a workflow? And when it's relevant for a client, I can just drop them in and have my task list ready to go.
And just to give everyone context, I think it's super important to note that having the perspective that we have, having worked with 14 other ACP firms, I can say that there's a lot of overlap with those initial workflows that Dennis and John did create in their hub. And then a lot of the improvements that I've seen you guys go out and make has really been about refining those templates into making them more and more specific to how they actually work in practice. So it's kind of, it almost felt like there were a lot of these task lists that this is how the best practice would be. And then once you actually go through, you're like, all right, that's great, but that's not actually what happens. This is actually more accurately described as A, B, C, and D. So.
And again, I think the key to all of it, and this will be the last thing I say about it, is just because it's so easy to use the system that we're able to tweak it on our own. We're able to improve it on our own, that we don't have to wait for you, Ron, to call us back and tell us how to do something, that we're actually can build our own workflows now, that we know how to use it and use it well enough that, we really don't need a lot of help after that initial onboarding process.
No, exactly. And for those of you listening, for those of you considering either signing up and starting with Hubly, or if you already have and you're waiting for that first training call, I just want to add there that the journey that Dennis and John went through was really a journey of discovery and trying to build out those processes from scratch. As a part of our recent partnership with ACP, we have 80% of the templates that you're going to need to get started with, template in a framework. So everything that you have in your desk reference is going to be a starting point in Hubly. So this last portion that we just talked about, that iteration, the making changes on your own and really getting the most use out of the workflows that work and feel the way that you do, that's going to be all that we're going to focus on. So we're not going to start from scratch. We're really going to start from the starting point that the network has given us to make it as easy as possible for you to spend as little time as possible in the early days just building these things out, so you can spend more time learning how it works and forming those habits, which I think are at the core of what we're going to cover next. I know a lot of advisors get overwhelmed with just having to-do lists all over the place, and would love to hear your process of doing that now that you're working in Hubly.
Sure, and I'll start off by saying that because of COVID, me and Dennis hadn't been in the same office for almost a year. That initially when we were talking about doing this presentation, we realized we use Hubly completely differently in our day-to-day operations, but it still works for both of us. So you thought it was a great idea that we show how we use it differently, but yet come to the same end result. So I'll share my screen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ron, and thank you, Dennis and John. And to give everyone a quick overview before we dive into Q&A, if you're interested in getting started with Hubly ACP best practice workflows, we've developed best practice workflows that cover everywhere from onboarding, tax preparation, review workflows, check-in scheduling. Here's just a quick comprehensive list of those workflows of what we've basically developed. And so we really have covered a lot of the bases. The workflows we've developed so far are really ideal for solo advisory firms, very similar structure to John and Dennis, where it's solo advisor or solo advisor and assistant working. These workflows still do need some refinement for larger firms, but primarily if you're a solo advisor struggling with creating a repeatable client onboarding experience to grow your book of business, or if you're struggling to increase your efficiency and retain existing clients, or if you're looking to offload some administrative work to a virtual assistant, these are all ways that these workflows will be really beneficial to your firm. We still love working with larger firms. Your process is also quite simple. Just schedule a strategy call with me and I'll direct you accordingly to if you're going through the large firm process or the smaller firm process. And so just go to www.myhubly.com/strategy call. Thank you so much, John and Dennis, for coming here today and sharing your experience with the ACP membership. If we didn't get to your question, my email is louis@myhubly.com. Please connect with me directly. I work closely with many of the ACP members, and I'd love to answer any of the unanswered questions. But we're going to wrap it up there. And just want to say a big shout out to John, Dennis, and Ron for the session today. Really appreciate it.